Thank you for joining us today for a discussion on cyber resilience. I'm Hannah Teal. I'm a manager for the Managed Awareness product here at Arctic Wolf, and I'm joined by Shule Tatar, the Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Christopher Fielder, the Field CTO for Arctic Wolf. I am so glad you both could be here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So the topic today, cyber resilience, which kind of boils down to how an organization responds to and withstands cybersecurity threats. And so in the landscape today, a logical starting point for discussion here seems to be AI. And a key driver for AI, this adoption of it, is efficiency, right? And out of this desire and motivation, we sometimes see people resorting to behavior that perhaps more accurately might end up being described as taking a shortcut. So why does this happen, and what are the risks involved with that attitude?
Christopher, if it's okay, I'll take the first step on this from the psychology and then pressure perspective, and then you can chime in from the AI perspective. Yeah, all right. So people take shortcuts in security because of mixture of psychology as well as the pressure, because the people wired to seek for efficiency, and in our brains reward comes with speed as well as the convenience. When people face with very tight deadlines as well as very complex security steps, they naturally look for easier path, and especially the risk feels a little bit more abstract or unlikely, then they would have a tendency to seek even more. If I'm not mistaken, psychologists call this optimism bias. So, in other words, people would think that, oh, it won't happen to me. But as you know, in cybersecurity, those shortcuts such as skipping MFA or reusing password or oversharing in AI tools open doors for attackers. And to prevent this, you need to design human behavior and make security action easiest to follow or easiest to take. That means that you need to automate wherever it's possible, simplify policies, and reinforce accountability through training as well as real world stories. When security itself feels intuitive or aligned with how people actually think and work, then resilience follow and make sure that it just follows naturally.
Yeah, it creates that really nice cohesive picture. And I love that you pointed out that psychology behind the shortcuts and the efficiency, I mean, it predates AI. It's human nature. This is what we want to do. This is important to everyone, especially in business context, right? So then, Christopher, what about that AI aspect?
Yeah, so I'm going to I agree with Shule completely, and I actually go a little bit more negative on it, where I say people are inherently lazy, right? And I say that because I'm lazy. If I don't have to do something, I'm not going to do it. And I think that's why, as long as we've invented stuff, we've invented things to make things easier on ourselves. And I've been in cybersecurity for 26 years, and the entire time I've been in cybersecurity, we've never had enough people to do the job. There's always been more work than there are people to actually do it. There's been more alerts we have to respond to, and then we get more technology that's out there, and then we have to use that technology. We have to respond to it. And we're finally at the point where we're being given this technology, or the promise of this technology, that's saying, this is going to help lighten the workload. This is going to help you, solve these problems. I think that's a bit of a fallacy, though, right? Because what we're seeing the more that we use AI is that it's not necessarily making less work, it's changing the work, right? Instead of saying, okay, well, we're starting from the very beginning, we're starting from scratch. Now we're starting from the output of AI, but having to go back and validate what AI has given us, because quite often it can be wrong or have some wrong aspects. And I think this is where the real concern lies. In the research that we've done, we found that 58% of the leaders that we talked to said that their biggest concern when it comes to AI is diminished skill sets. And I think that's absolutely true, right? Of people going, well, I got AI that can do this for me now, and AI is giving me these alerts, or worse, AI is suppressing these alerts. So if it suppressed those alerts, then they must not be a concern. Well, this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, if it suppresses something, I would rather personally have way more false positives than a single false negative. Because a false positive, it's just going to take time for me to go through and have to say, okay, well, that's nothing. Let me get rid of it. But a false negative is saying, okay, this is a real problem, but I'm dismissing it like it's not. And that's going to allow the attack to get worse. So all that comes down to is, AI, it has its place, but we need to be very cautious in the way that we approach it and the way that we use it. And we don't want to see it. When you're faced with a lock, everything looks like a key, if that makes sense, right? Like it looks like this is going to be the solution to all of our problems when it's not. We just have to make sure that we have a clearly defined way that we want to use this, and we have to stay on top of make sure that it is effective and we are using it the correct way. And it seems like we can't get away from the topic of AI and cybersecurity right now.
And also, I would just add what you said, Christopher. Let's remind everybody, AI is just another tool.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not going to solve every single problem that you have. If not, it might even open up more problems. And I think we did cover that during our cybersecurity awareness summit, where we talk about AI is being double-edged sword. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that is why I think you need to, everybody needs to understand that, yes, AI is part of our day-to-day and you should be utilizing, but you need to be careful how you are using it, this tool. Otherwise, it can come back and bite you.
Absolutely, 100%, right? And I love that. I say that analogy every time I go out. Like it's not good or bad, it just is, right? It's no good or bad as a hammer is good or bad. And with a hammer, you can build a house or you can break a window, right? You can do all kinds of things with it. And with AI, you can make really funny TikTok videos, which I've spent too much time watching, or you can use it for credential stuffing and use it to test passwords and test across an entire environment. There's all kinds of things you could do with it, but it's about using it in context. And I really am against that idea of framing it as either a positive or a negative, because it isn't either. It just is. And it's about the people that are behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's so true. I mean, friction in and of itself, we tend to think of it as a negative. I don't know why I always equate that with AI, but as well, but there's good friction and there's bad friction. So framing it in its contexts is very important for application and for changing and influencing behavior. You understand why you're doing it in context.
Friction is what stops your car or slows your airplane down. I just got off an airplane, so that's why I'm thinking about that. But that's what slows your airplane down, right? But at the same time, we think about, like you just said, friction between people could be a negative thing. So again, it's all how you look at it in context.
Yeah. Absolutely. For anyone just joining us, we're speaking here on cyber resilience, and we've been talking about the part that AI can play in cybersecurity, both the negatives and the positives, negatives particularly from the psychology angle of shortcuts. And then Christopher was just reminding us of the importance of balance from the positive side as well. Shule and Christopher, did you have anything else you'd like to add to that discussion from perhaps some of the research in the snapshot or risk report?
Yeah. Shule, you got anything you want to add? And I can go.
I think we are good from that perspective. So, but I do would like to remind everyone that we have Arctic Wolf 2025 Human Risk Behavior Snapshot is a link, if I'm not mistaken. Kyle, chat, please, if I'm not mistaken. Everybody can download that report, and we highly encourage you to do so because it has fantastic insight regarding to human behavior as a whole, both from IT and security leaders' perspective, as well as end users' perspective. So it has great insights. We highly appreciate if you take a look and gain your perspective.
Absolutely. There's a lot of great info in there. I mean, what I would kind of add to this is now is the time to really pay attention to this and to move on it. We, in the report that Shulei's talking about, we talked to 1,000 plus people, I believe, or some are close to it, but 87% of the IT leaders we talked to said that they've already used things like ChatGPT for work material, and over half, I think it was like 60%, said that they've even admitted to 60% said they'd admit to sharing confidential information, which is kind of scary, right? Like,
and if I'm not mistaken, Christopher, that stat was specifically coming from IT and security people.
Yes,
it was kind of,
absolutely.
part.
Yeah, that was really upsetting, unfortunately. But again, we all make mistakes. That's okay. In fact, I appreciate people who are willing to admit that. But anytime I talk about AI, if I'm going out talking to a group or I'm doing something like this, I always tell people, if there's anything that you can take from this discussion, it's that if you do not have an acceptable use policy for artificial intelligence, specifically large language models and generative AI, you need to do that today. You need to develop one, because this stuff is already being used in your environment. People are already using it, using ChatGPT or Grok or, the one from Anthropic, Claude, whatever it may be. They're using them. And you need to make sure that they know how to use it correctly, because what you don't want to happen is data leaks. You don't want them to put proprietary information, company information, personal information into these models, and you don't have any kind of an acceptable use policy or guideline that you can hold them to say you shouldn't have done that. Because at the end of the day, if they've done it and you didn't tell them that it was good or bad, is it really their fault? I mean, you could argue maybe they should have known better, but if you didn't specifically tell, how can you get mad at a kid? And I don't want to call people kids, but how can you get mad at a child for doing something wrong if you didn't teach them that this is the wrong thing to do?
Exactly.
So, so
Exactly.
that's why everyone needs to go out there, have an acceptable use policy, and then communicate that policy. I believe we also had a good stat for that as well, didn't we, Shula, in the report?
Yeah, we did. And if you download it, you can see those.
Well, we won't give it away, but there's a good stat in there as well on, communicating that policy. So it's not about just creating it, it's also about communicating it.
Absolutely. And there's a glimmer of optimism again from Christopher. You said earlier you were going to be very negative and pessimistic about this AI stuff, but it's not always attainable, but we like to throw out that phrase, that you want people to rise to the level of their training. So to your point, the training has to be there for that benchmark to start in the first place. So shortcuts are human. And AI is everywhere, which doesn't shock anyone, especially at this point. So what do we do? In the context of security awareness, human risk management, you've already mentioned the importance of policies and procedures with acceptable use. But are there certain roles or departments that need to be more vigilant than others? We may, as end users ourselves, just sitting around at our company, want to default the responsibility to IT or information security teams, for example. But it needs to be a little more ubiquitous than that. Everyone has a buy-in, has a stake in this.
Christopher, do you want me to take a first swing?
Please, go right ahead.
So I think we established that within our report. Risk is just not relying on the IT and security people. It exists across every single person in the organization and every single department as well. So I would like to go ahead and give a couple of role-specific examples so that we can level set per se. Like, let's look at HR. HR handles with the data and access right, and with a small mistake that they could do that can create a huge openings for attackers. And then when it comes to finance, this department is high value target for attackers because they would handle with payments as well as vendor data, also transferring one money to another company. So Phishing awareness as well as the verifications are critical for these roles. And on the other hand, IT and security, bread and butter of these policies and building and making sure that enforcing the controls, they cannot do by themselves. They cannot do alone. So collaboration across teams are essential for IT and security teams. That is why we as Arctic Wolf strongly believe on the security culture, where everybody understands that all of us share the responsibility of protecting the company as well as the protecting ourselves. So that is the kind of how it would get tailored back to the roles, and leaders needs to make sure that it's top down what is the most important, which is the creating the culture of security. Christopher, would you like to add anything?
I completely agree, right? There are some roles that are going to require a little bit more awareness or knowledge because they're going to be ones that are heavily targeted, as Shule said, finance, right? Because of business email compromise and phishing, and they deal with money, or C-level executive, or whoever it may be. But at the end of the day, the way that I always tell people this is, if you touch a keyboard, if you look at a monitor, if you walk into the building, you are responsible for security just as everybody else, because you could be somebody that an attacker tries to manipulate. They don't always get that C-level executive. They don't always get that finance person, as the first thing that they get. Sometimes it's a matter of leapfrogging, to get to that person. Sometimes it's just, it's sometimes a matter of getting into the building. So if you are somebody that goes in, I hear this all the time. Well, I don't have to take security awareness training because I don't actually use a computer. You still go into the building. So you can still hold the door open for somebody. You could still allow somebody in. And once that person gets in, they could walk around and just grab a laptop and walk out. They could start, I used to walk around and just start turning over keyboards and look for who had their password written on a Post-it note underneath it. Eventually you'll find that. So, the other thing is, when you are at the airport, you see these signs up that say, if you see something, say something. And every person that works in your building, that works in your office, could be that human detector. They could be that person that sees somebody doing something unusual, doing something strange. And they could say, hey, I don't know if this is okay, but I never seen that person before. I didn't allow them in. They just kind of walked in and they were sitting down at other people's computers and looking at things.
Clicking keyboards.
Yeah, exactly, right? So everyone should be aware of this. Everyone should be knowledgeable of this because we're all responsible for it. We could always be the person that says, hey, something unusual happened. And then from a leader perspective, it's your responsibility as an IT leader, as a leader in general, to lead by example, but also put on a friendly face. And I know that's hard for me too sometimes, but the best way that you're going to detect a threat is if your people will come to you and say, I made a mistake. I did something I shouldn't have. I clicked on that link. I gave somebody my password. It's so much better if they come to you and tell you that than you having to find it out 2 or 3 days later, when the system is compromised, or the network is compromised. So don't build that culture of fear. I'm going to repeat exactly what Shule said. Not a culture of fear, but a culture of security awareness and a culture of security from the ground up. I couldn't agree more with that.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah, if it's okay, I'm just gonna flip the table because we've been in this industry such a long time, and I just don't want you to be host today. So I would love to get your insight.
Well, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I mean, because in my opinion, you guys are nailing all the points. Like it's such it's a culture. It has to be a pervasive buy-in from everyone. And we have to work against, we were talking earlier about psychology and specifically there with the idea of shortcuts and how that ties into the implementation of AI, but also the psychology of, like Christopher kind of touched on, the attitude of, well, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not important enough. You have a balancing, a battle of the egos between all of your end users in all of your ecosystems, where some people it's an overinflation of, well, I'm too important, so yeah, people may target me, but I'm above the need for training because of my role. I've been in this industry for however long, so I know everything. Well, especially with AI, stuff changes every single day. Tactics, I mean, the bad guys are out there trying to find new tactics. Every time there's a technological advance, they're going to push and find the weaknesses for it. And then the good guys have to keep up in the exact same way, whether it is in the high tech development areas or if it's in the lower tech, the training areas, coming down to, like Christopher said, tailgating, holding the door open for the wrong person. Just, not knowing, not being aware of your company's policies for badging in, or even for reporting. If you see someone who, they're not wearing their badge, my company policy is your badge has to be clipped to you. It has to be visible. Who do I tell? Because, as part of the culture as well, and based on your organization's policies, you don't want to put yourself at risk physically or what have you with a confrontation of necessarily coming up to that person, whether you're comfortable with that or not. But you need to know your company's guidelines for when you find yourself in that situation, what do I do? So that training awareness, and it applies to everyone equally. And
absolutely,
I fully believe that.
I would like the two things which you reminded to me. So first thing first, I work remotely, so I'm not in the office, but whenever I go to any of our office, I take, that security very seriously. A couple of years ago, our CEO was about to tailgate because his hands were full. And I'm like, Nick, I am sorry. I literally stopped him, and then I'm like, I'll hold your coffee and then you can badge in. So I personally did that, and he was like, yeah, sure. Like, he actually appreciated that behavior. That is one. And the second point that I would like to make is that you mentioned, oh, I'm above the, those trainings because I have 25 years old experience in cybersecurity. Like, from my perspective, cybersecurity is not about you know it all. It is about constant reminding, because people have a tendency to forget, and that continuous reminder give you a peace of mind, and it will be in your brain all the time with this regular trainings. I know that I shouldn't click for phishing links, and what are the things that I should be looking for. But when I'm tired, when I am so busy with all the workload, sometimes, like, we are all humans and we can make mistakes. That's why reinforcing the security awareness training and taking those trainings seriously is very important.
Yes,
absolutely.
And something to what Christopher said earlier, which you kind of ended there, Shule, with that attitude, of not creating a culture of shame and embarrassment. So Nick, you stopped him, you said, and he was appreciative. He was grateful. It was like, oh, yes, you're right. This is good. That was a great attitude demonstrated by him. And then, mentioning when people get busy and you make a simple mistake, there's no shame in making a mistake because we're all human. What you don't want is to let that snowball into something big, which becomes a breach, an incident, and then has to be remediated and becomes very problematic.
So Hollywood has kind of convinced us all that attacks are these really high tech, super advanced things where, somebody sits down and, hits 3 keys on a keyboard and they scream, I'm in, and suddenly that they're in some sort of a mainframe that doesn't exist. Right. It doesn't work that way.
No.
It's basic psychological manipulation, and we can all be manipulated, right? This used to be one of my favorite, I'm speaking from experience here. I used to love trying to get into buildings when I did this. And there were so many ways that we could do it because we play off of the manipulation of people don't want to be seen as unfriendly. They don't want to be seen as unhelpful, And so if you walk up to a building and you have your arms full, somebody's going to hold the door for you because they want to be helpful, right? Or one of the best keys I found, $20 key to get into any building is go buy 4 cheap pizzas. Go buy 4 pizzas, walk up, you can go to any thrift store and find a used polo shirt from one of those pizza places. In fact, I tried one time where I bought a polo shirt from one pizza place and then bought pizza from a different competitor and still got
Right.
into the building, right? Still got in, and print out something that says you're told to go put this in the break room, and somebody will, hey, the paper can't be lying. They must be telling the truth.
Right.
Or put on an orange vest and carry a toolbox and say that you're there to fix the plumbing or something. People want to be helpful, but helpful should not come at a cost of a breach or violating your security policy. You're helping your company more than you're helping that person. So think of it that way. You can still be helpful and go, hey, you got some boxes there, like you said, you got some boxes. Tell you what, give me 1 second, let me call somebody and we'll get somebody out here to help you, and they can also verify who you are. One of the best things that anybody can do is remember that you, as a member of your company, hold all the power here against attackers, because you can stop them. They're trying to go fast. They're trying to overload you. They're trying to, manipulate you. You can say, hey, slow down for a second. Say that again. Repeat that. Who are you? What are you doing? Ask questions. Questions will sometimes be what scares them away because they
Yes.
won't have answers. So ask questions, slow things down, don't get overloaded, and then there's no such thing. Well, there is such thing, but quid pro quo is one of the ones that they absolutely love, which means they're going to give you something and then you owe them something. You do not owe anyone anything, especially your password, especially access into the building. Now, the most you ever owe anybody is a thank you, right? They give you a t-shirt, they give you candy, they give you pizza. You can say, sure, thank you, I appreciate that. I'm still not giving you my password, and I'm still going to make you stand outside, but I at least appreciate what you gave me. So yeah, basic psychological manipulation. And then one of the best ways to learn this is awareness training. And that's right, bringing it all back.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it's not yearly training either, because I have a hard time remembering what I learned 3 weeks ago, let alone 364 days ago. So we have to do this on a regular routine basis and keep building off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming up on the end of our time here. If there's anyone in our audience who had some last minute quick questions they'd like to throw in, we'd be happy to take a look at those as well. But since we've talked so much about psychology and you've just looped us right back around to training, which is awesome, what about these environments that feel prepared? They've done their training, they've got their processes in place. Are there any risks that can stem from that at all? Any sort of pitfalls for people to watch out for?
Shirley, I'll jump on this one, then you can have the final word here. But what I always tell people is, if an attacker has most attackers are opportunistic, right? What we found is that 76% of attacks use 10 of the most common vulnerabilities that were out there. Pretty easy to, cover those. But if attackers truly set their sights on you, they're going to get access in one way or another. That's just the way that the game goes. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to be able to spot it. You have to be able to respond quickly. Have an incident response plan. Have an incident response retainer. Have people that are ready to go. Do tabletops. Practice these things. Have awareness training so people know who to communicate with, so they can report phishing. Have everything in place so that when the alarm goes off, that's the reason that we have fire drills. We know where to go. We know what to do. So practice. So there's no such thing as I am ready. I am not going to get attacked and I'm fully prepared. Keep going, keep training, keep preparing, because it will happen eventually. Shirley, I want to give you the last word though.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And from my perspective, human risk or vulnerability risk, those are the things that we can mitigate proactively. You need to have some sort of MDR solution, SIM, or some sort or work space security in your environment so that you can react to certain incidents and threats timely manner. And if it passed through, you need to have incident response stakeholders, incident response tabletop exercises, incident response planning, so that when it happens, I don't say anymore if, because it's matter of time. It's not if anymore. And when it happens, you would know how to react, what to react, who to, you know, get looked in, and all those details. So you need to have every single aspect of the security covered uh, to be prepared.
Completely agree.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christopher and Shule, for joining us today for this discussion on cyber resilience, where we kind of focused on psychology and AI use mostly, and then, of course, the importance of security awareness training and keeping an eye on your human risk management. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in and hearing what we had to say. I didn't see any comments pop up. If you have anything after we're done here today, I'm sure someone will get in contact with you with the answers. This is an ongoing series that we're doing here at Arctic Wolf, so be sure to tune in next time to see the presenters for the next event.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Christopher.
Thanks, everyone.